Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
This episode we're going to be talking about canned modules campaigns versus homebrew. Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
We're going to talk a little bit about canned modules campaigns versus homebrew modules campaigns.
Yeah. Now we're getting ready to start a campaign, and it's going to be a canned module. Now,
Adventure Path.
Adventure
Pathfinder.
For Pathfinder. So it's an adventure path. And so typically we don't do that. Delaney creates homebrew campaigns quite often. In the past, when we've had other DMs, they've always done adventure paths that they've had their module set up, and we've always talked about the differences between them, and why would you want to do one or the other?
Yeah. So, pulling out a purchased adventure path or adventure campaign, whether it be like the Curse of Strahd for 5e or Dungeon Heist or whatever, versus maybe the Wrath of the Righteous,
Yeah.
or Mummy's Mask, which is actually the one that we're going to be
Yeah.
taking place in. Or we have a new player who actually gamed with us many years ago, who moved back to the area, who's going to rejoin us and is going to DM. Yay, I get to play! And he set about 4 different adventure paths for us to pick from. And I basically told him, I says, well, here's what I've been in, Tom and I have played in, or here's what I've read, or even the one that I did run for a little while. And he said, well, okay, which one of these do you want to run? And our group did a vote, and we did it by points.
Yeah.
And Mummy's Mask ended up being the one that we picked.
Yeah, and it seems like, it's an exotic sort of path, and it's a different path than we've been kind of working on before. Our last 2 game session groups that we did was basically set in kind of a mountainous, forested, cold, snowy environment, and then the one right after that, of course, was a pirate Borg adventure set in a pirating adventure. So it just seemed kind of cool that one of the things I wanted this to be set kind of in a desert, because Delaney did a homebrew desert campaign before. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We had fun with crypts and tombs and the desert nights and giant scorpions and all the things that happened. It was cool. It was fun. And, it's hot. It's summer. It's hot outside.
Got a whole lot of things to deal with. You got to carry a lot more water.
You got to carry water. You got to carry food and all that stuff like that.
You got animals. You got to care for the animals.
Yeah. So there's a lot of responsibilities. So in a canned adventure, I thought this would be kind of cool. We could do this. And the thing about a canned adventure, and I keep calling them that, but it's really an adventure path. When you talk about adventure path, they're very popular because there isn't a whole lot of actual personal prep that the DM has to do, because all of it's been done for you.
Yeah, you can open the book, the module, read through it, get to know it, familiarize yourself with it. If you want to make a little bit of change here or there, you can. But it's a lot simpler to do because it's all set before you. All the conversation, the traps are there, the magic items are there, the challenge ratings are there.
Well, that saves a lot of time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It saves a whole lot of time.
A lot of prep time, a lot of effort. Everything is there for you. And I think that we can argue that it's really kind of cool for people who want to start gaming right away. It's like, okay, I don't have to go back home for a month to work up this homebrew. We can start right now, because I right here have, Curse of the Undying Tomb Wizard. Right there. Okay, page 1, we're going to go. Roll up characters, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So you can get started right away. And there's a lot of popularity there. Definitely a lot of popularity.
Yeah. In the old days, a lot of what we had modules. And they actually would come out in a series and make a campaign. So you could have the the Pharaoh, and it was the I series, or you could have the Curse of the Borderlands, or you could have the Slave Pits of the Undercity, or the Shrine of Kotoa and the Drow, or the Giant series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they would have this whole campaign that you could have. They had 3 or 4 modules in them, and you could play them all, and they were all prep. So it was easy to do to throw your group into an adventure.
Yeah, and I can see that that's really popular, and there's like this seduction of that easiness, that people would think, this availability, this easy availability, that people would think it's like, this is what we need to do because we want to get started right away.
Right. Whereas a homebrew, it takes a lot more thought and writing or preparing off. I do a lot of off the top of my head, but even then, I still have a lot of stuff that has been created or wrote down that I can just throw out, randomly. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it's going on up here. I can plan out a little bit more, and I usually start off my adventure writing the first part of it, and then after that, it turns into a free flow.
Yeah,
we've talked about that before.
Yeah, and the thing is what I believe about homebrew campaigns, we've played in quite a few of them, is they provide a creative outlet for people. Okay, a creative outlet for a DM to create their own world and approach magic from their point of view and combat from their point of view. Right.
Where in a homebrew, I find that I can have a lot more character-driven storyline because if a person comes up with their backstory and hands it to me, I can say, "Oh, okay, here's your backstory." In an adventure path, it's a little harder to throw that stuff in and add that stuff in.
Yeah,
it can be done.
Yeah, but you're literally taking a path where there's not a lot of deviation.
Right.
And so
it's kind of like the old books, the old adventure path books.
Yeah.
Turn to page 178. Okay. Turn to page 4. Okay. Yeah. Turn to page 202. Okay. Turn to page 38. Okay.
Yeah. You're following a very specific linear path, and the whole point is to get there. You have to get to the tomb at the end of all these adventures so that you can have the boss fight. And that's kind of how it is in an adventure path. There's nothing wrong with that, because as everybody knows, you want to have fun, you want to get along the way, you want to have adventures, and you want to get to the end and complete it. There wouldn't be a whole lot of point of doing a completely open-ended, never-ending, canned adventure path because, it's got to end sometime. You've got to somehow have the boss fight and come out with the loot. Now you can have open worlds that go on and on and on, and we have one of your campaigns, the big one, that essentially goes on and on and on. But even then, it has an ending, and it will end eventually. But the thing is there's a lot more variability in a homebrew than there can be in a canned adventure where everything is very literal.
Right. The adventure paths tend to be very literal. Lineal.
Yeah. They follow a straight line.
Right. And a great example of that was the adventure path we did in a desert one where we had the artifact, and we all decided. We've talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about this before. But eventually, it killed the canned adventure because we were unwilling to plane jump because none of us were really experienced in plane jumping, and it didn't seem like our DM was going to help us much. So we ended up with an issue where we didn't want to take the artifact and use it to plane jump.
Yeah.
We wanted to sell it, get all the money, and then do our own adventures.
Right. Whereas a homebrew tends to not be as lineal.
Yeah.
It can
go
be.
Anywhere. You can follow these paths.
Yeah. Your DM can say, "Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't think about that." A little easier to go at it. You can still do that in some of the canned adventures. They didn't think about that. What do I do here? Oh, I got to think of something on the top of my head. Whereas in the homebrew, it's a little easier, at least for me, to go off that path and do what the party wants.
Yeah.
They don't want to go to. They don't want to go to the town. They want to go to the dungeon. Oh, okay, dungeon done.
So the mainstay of the homebrew campaign is the village with the message board in the middle of the village. You stop there and you see all these messages nailed onto the piece of wood, and it's okay, chase down the bandits, explore the old ruins, find the missing child, help the king. Those are your potential spokes in a wheel moving out of your adventures. That's the way that a DM and a homebrew would get everybody to go along and do all these different things. But the problem is you have to prepare all those different pathways and have them going. Yeah. Where, essentially, in an adventure path, people are just basically following the same, this lineal path, right. So that, and there aren't going to be any deviations. Now, what is more fun? I don't know. I mean,
I've played a few of both, and I think both can be very fun.
They can be very fun, depending on your party and what happens. I can see the attractions from both sides, and this isn't about sides, black versus white, up versus down, whatever. This is about just different variations of what's going on. But I can see the attractions for both different areas. Homebrew campaigns can sometimes allow for a lot more creativity, but
it takes a lot more time.
But it takes a lot more time and a lot more effort. So there's drawbacks to everything.
Right. Whereas your AP, once again, you can just pop it open and read it and go through it.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what our DM says. Like, okay, let me dig through this and read it and prep it, and I've got actually all the APs. Mm-hmm. So, he's more than welcome to use what I've got, because I'm not going to use them all.
Yeah.
APs, your challenge is typically a lot more set, and I've seen a lot more TPK happen from APs and canned modules than from a homebrew.
I think, like you said, the challenges are set, and I think it all depends on dice rolls. If everybody's
dice rolls and your balanced party.
Yeah, if you have a balanced party, I think that would probably work a lot better in an adventure path. And you get some good dice rolls, you can keep going. In a homebrew, I think a DM might have some flexibility for keeping you alive, because they want you to adventure more. I want you guys to make it to the temple so you can at least see the undead guy. I don't want you to die fighting these gnolls, that kind of stuff. So, I'll throw one or two less gnolls at you this time. Whereas in the adventure path, you're fighting 8 gnolls. Whether you live or die, I don't know, but you're fighting 8 gnolls. Oh, you're all dead? Roll up some new guys so we can keep going.
Skulls and shackles. We talked
Skulls
about that
and shackles
in the last episode.
Yeah, skulls and shackles. I'm sorry everybody died from those swarms. What do we do? Well, we ended up not playing again because everybody was so disgusted with what happened.
Yeah.
So
I remember a jungle one too, where I was playing a witch, and I think I was the last person standing.
Yep. I vaguely remember that. Yep.
Availability. Adventure paths and canned modules are, you go to your store or go online, whether you go to Paizo or you go to Wizards of the Coast or some other company and buy them, get PDFs.
Let me ask you a question. So in the old Dragon magazines, did they have adventure paths in there laid out?
They did not have adventure paths in the Dragon magazines. Now, Dragon magazines did have modules.
Okay.
They weren't there all the time. I have a whole collection of ones I pulled out of Dragon magazines, and then I also have all the PDFs of all the Dragon magazines. Right. And then after a time, they got away from putting them in the Dragon magazine, and they came out with Dungeon magazine. And Dungeon magazine was nothing but dungeons.
Okay.
Which have some real... I've got a huge collection of that.
Sure. I was just wondering if they had like serialized adventures.
They did have a few.
See, that's a really cool way to get those canned adventures out to the public. If we're going to serialize them in these magazines, I mean, you go buy the magazine, you get magazine 1 to 6. That's your adventure path. You guys don't look. I got them all, so yeah, it's like trying to get people not to look.
Yep.
But then the thing is they're like paging through, following the path, and it's serialized like that, which is kind of cool.
If you remember in the long going campaign where you've got Nighterback, there was the Dwarven Temple. That was the shrine, or the Temple of Baraldur, which came from Dragon Magazine number 41, and I rewrote it for Pathfinder.
I remember.
I went in and rewrote everything in it for Pathfinder. I had all the maps, so I just took the rooms and fit it in for Pathfinder.
I remember you talking about that you redid it that way, and it's pretty cool, because it did come up pretty good.
So the Dungeon Magazines, or Dragon Magazines, had some really cool modules. Feta Fencer is one that was in there. And they even came out with stuff for Top Secret. I remember there was a Top Secret module that I've got.
That's nice.
Which was pretty cool. But yeah, the Dragon magazines and then Dungeon magazines were one of the spots that they put out adventures, so you could pull out your adventure and say, okay, I'm going to run this, and it could be a 3 or 4 hour shot.
Sure.
Because they weren't very big.
Or you could do a one shot. You know, where just basically everybody get together, roll up a level 3 character. We're going to do one shot tonight.
Or you could make a campaign out of those adventures in your own world.
Yeah.
Based upon the such and such and such and such on the adventure board. Mm-hmm. So they were really cool. They were quite fun and quite popular.
I can imagine them being quite popular because of that reason. You know, the thing is they're very available. They're easy to work on. You know, the DM doesn't have to do a lot of work. You know, all they've got to do is basically put the resources together and start playing. Yeah,
the conversation was already pretty much there. Even they would highlight the conversation in a specific way that you know that the mayor would say this to you.
Yeah,
and you could vary it a little bit. You know, you pick. You know, the party says A, B, C, or D.
Yeah, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that's fine. It's just it really depends on what the DM wants to do and what the what the players want to be challenged by.
Yeah. Now, as a DM, I typically don't use I don't do APs. I've ran some APs in the past.
Yeah.
I've ran some modules in the past. I think they're great for their use. I think I've got most of the Pathfinder APs and modules for first edition. I've got a few for second. I've got a few even for 5e. And most of them are in electronic format, which is great for me because I can just have it there on my computer and zoom in and go back and forth instead of flipping it and I don't ruin my module. But then I've also got the whole huge stack collection of the Dragon magazine. There was a CD eons ago that had all the Dragon magazines, and I had all that.
That's nice.
And then Dungeon, they didn't do that, but I actually have those on PDF, and then a whole huge collection over in the shelf. So as far as availability, they're that's the great thing about canned modules.
Yeah, they're out there.
Campaigns.
Easy to use. They're out there.
But as a DM, I like my own ideas, and I might take pieces from those things if I flip through them and see it and say, oh, that's a cool idea. I want to import that into mine, like I did with Barrel.
Yeah. I really think it comes down to what the DM wants, what they prefer, and what the players may want to prefer. I do like the idea that an open world sort of homebrew campaign can be a creative outlet for a DM. And I think that, of course, a lot of gaming can be very creative. A lot of people, though, don't feel that they're particularly creative, so they don't want to approach it from that point of view. And I can see that. Okay, that's nothing wrong with that.
Or they don't have the time.
Or they don't have the time. And we're a very time-pressed world. Things are very compressed all at once. It's like things are happening all at once. And we're a very time-pressed world. So it's sort of like, well, I know you don't have time to put together a homebrew, but we all want a game, so why don't you just find a canned campaign that we can play with, and we'll have fun.
Yeah.
Because it's all about having fun. That's what it's about.
Yeah. So I start, with myself, I'll come up with an idea and I'll start formulating it. It's like the campaign that I mentioned to you that I wanted to maybe eventually run, which is the Risen Sun.
Yeah.
The campaign of the Risen Sun.
Yeah.
Now there's a play on word there.
Yeah.
And what it's all about.
And that would be really cool is because there's a lot of creativity there.
And it follows the time of winter in the dark. Mm-hmm. So the Risen Sun is kind of another campaign in a slight future of the world.
Yeah.
In a different part of the world.
But it's set in a Dane, right?
Right.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Set in the homebrew.
Anyway, we'd like to hear your thoughts on canned modules and campaigns versus home brewing. What do you prefer to do? Do you do a combination? Do you use all of one and not of the other? What do you do?
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting, folks, to especially hear from DMs and from long-term players who had experience with both and see what they have to say.
Yeah. Before we do wrap it up, I do remember one DM that we had, or a guy that I gamed with, who wanted us to span worlds. That you would play in his world as a DM, but you keep the characters and pop into the next player's world and run in there, and you would do that for every DM that you had. That way you kept the same characters. The problem with that I always had was the magic consistency and everything else consistency.
That seems a little odd.
Yeah, it was kind of an odd thing. So anyway, Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, spread the word, follow us on Discord, send us an email, let us know if there's an episode, something you want us to hear, to have us talk about or do. We'll see what we can do. But anyway, may all your adventures be epic.
And keep on rolling, folks.
Have a good one.